Good morning, councillors and guests. Welcome to this joint overview and scrutiny committee. I'm Councillor John Hinton and I'm chairing the meeting today. May I first remind you of some domestic arrangements. Please ensure that microphones are turned off when not in use and that you do not interrupt other speakers. If you are attending the meeting to speak and persistently interrupt the meeting, you may be asked to leave. Please ensure your mobile phones and laptops are on silent. Additionally, we will be using e-voting for this meeting on the Modern Gov app. I'd like to remind everyone present that this meeting will be broadcast live to the internet and will be capable of repeated viewing. The whole of the meeting will be filmed, except where there are confidential or exempt items. If you make a representation to the meeting, you will be deemed by the Council to have consented to being filmed. By entering this meeting as a speaker, you are also consenting to being recorded by the Council and to the possible use of those images and sound recordings for webcasting and or training purposes. The Council, members of the public and the press may record, film, photograph or broadcast this meeting when the public and the press are not lawfully excluded. I would just add at this point that I will be taking items 13 to 16, that's the various work plans, after item 9, and we'll be postponing item 11 to the end of the proceedings, so that when we go into confidential session, that will be the last item on the proceedings. In attendance today, we have Di Robinson, Interim Director of Communities and Wellbeing, Sally Longmate, CEO of Suffolk Association of Local Councils, Jan Robinson, Corporate Manager of Law and Governance, and Alicia Norman, Lead Officer for Overview and Scrutiny. And Councillor Mary McLaren, who is BDC Cabinet Member for Communities. Can I move to the agenda, please?
Thank you, Chair. We have apologies from Councillor Carter, Councillor Ekpeng-Yong and Councillor Wellham, and we have Councillor Davies substituting for Councillor Wellham.
No, right. To receive declarations of pecuniary, other registrable or non-registerable interest by members. None? None? Good. To receive notification of petitions in accordance with the Council's petition scheme.
None received, Chair.
To confirm the minutes of the joint meeting held on the 21st of November 2022. First of all, are there any points regarding the accuracy of the minutes? Councillor Barrett.
Thank you, Chair. On the 21st November, I believe that was the meeting we spoke about the CAB and had the presentation. I would like to ask for an amendment because I think there's no mention of my comments about the community supermarket. Apologies if that's not the right term for it, but it's along those lines. I had expressed some concerns about viability cost, as it assumes people will have the means and the time to travel to a central facility. So I'd hope that that would be reflected in the minutes.
Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, that's fine. If the committee agree that that's actually what happened.
Well, I can remember it being discussed, so certainly I would be in favour of having that addition put into the minutes. Any other comments on the minutes? Could I have a proposal for the minutes then, please, with the addition of the item on concerning community supermarkets or whatever they're called? Councillor Moore? Yeah. Seconder, Councillor Grandon. The Governance Officer will conduct the electronic vote.
Thank you, Chair. Members, that vote is now in progress. Thank you, Chair. That is 8 votes for, so that is unanimous.
The minutes of the joint meeting on the 21st of November have been confirmed with the amendment that has been proposed. Now then, for Babergh members only, to confirm the minutes of the Babergh meeting held on the 21st of November. Councillor Osborne.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Correction to the minutes on the 21st with the on that particular was that Councillor Jan Osborne was in attendance in the afternoon, and it's not on that on the actual minutes. So also she did answer several questions that are not minuted either.
Chair, can I just come in? So the minutes are not verbatim, they are just to capture the thread. Obviously we do stream live and all of the whole meeting is recorded and is able to be repeat viewed. So we can certainly add Councillor Jan Osborne to the minutes as the portfolio holder in attendance, but we couldn't list every single question and answer that everybody makes in ONS because they're not verbatim minutes, it's to give you a flavour. So unless there's a particular point that Councillor Osborne would like added, we would just leave it that we can add that she answered a number of questions on the issue and refer councillors back to the live stream for a full record of the meeting.
Yeah. Perhaps Jan, you could speak to her about that.
I will. Yeah, I'll take it out outside the meeting.
Even I wouldn't know.
Yeah.
What
But we can certainly add in that she answered questions on the issues.
I think the main thing was she did attend the afternoon. Yes. It was in the afternoon, and she did attend.
Yeah, so we can add that in. I think, and generally said that she answered questions on the issue.
Well, it was HRA, so she would have had to come in on certain occasions. So.
Yeah, so yes, we can add that in as a general, but without getting into each specific question.
Thank you, Jan.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Could I have a proposal, if there are no more comments on those minutes, can I have a proposer from the Babergh members? Councillor Barrett, seconder, please. Nobody going to second them? Yes, oh, definitely. Councillor Osborne, and so those are the Babergh minutes from the meeting in the afternoon of the 21st, with the addition of the presence of Councillor Osborne and any particular points that she would like included in the minutes in terms of the questions she asked. All those in favour? Oh, do you want electronic vote? Sorry, electronic vote again.
Thank you, Chair. Members, a vote is now in progress. This is just for Babergh councillors only.
I left my brick at home.
Thank you, Chair. That is 4 votes for and 1 abstention, so that is carried.
And next, to confirm the minutes of the Mid-Suffolk meeting held on the 22nd of November 2022. And these are from Mid-Suffolk members only. Are there any points of accuracy concerning the minutes? No? Good. Could I have a proposer, please? Councillor Caston, seconder Councillor Muller. We'll now move to the electronic vote.
Thank you, Chair. Members, that vote is now in progress, and this is for Mid-Suffolk councillors only. Thank you, Chair. That is 2 votes for and 1 abstention. So that's carried.
Thank you, members. We move on then to questions by the public.
None received, Chair.
Questions by councillors.
None received.
Move on to item 9, review of the Suffolk Association of... Are we going to do the SALC first? Sorry, slight confusion as to what order we're going to be taking them in. We'll now take item 9, which is a review of the Suffolk Association of Local Councils, SALC. I'd like to invite the Cabinet Member for Communities to introduce a report to the committee.
Oh, thank you, Chair. I'm very happy to support this report. I am doubly happy because I was the one that actually requested this scrutiny item about 2 years ago, so I'm delighted to be here to support Sally Longmate, who is the Chief Executive Officer of SALC. I think SALC is an important part of our work as ward members, and we can work together with SALC to improve the effectiveness of parish and town councils. So I'm delighted for Sally to present the report to you. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, yes, good morning. I think I've got a PowerPoint presentation that hopefully will be coming up shortly. That's great, thank you. And I just want to double check that I can use the technology correctly. So thank you very much for this opportunity to talk to you this morning about what SALC is all about, the Suffolk Association of Local Councils. We've been going for a number of years. I've been in post for just over 4 years, and obviously been through COVID for half of those. But we've been around since about 1950 something. We're part of a network of 43 county associations across the UK, supporting 10,000 town and parish councils. So quite a significant number. Once you start to put some money against that as well, it's quite an amount of money. We are membership based, so effectively parish councils, and this was the origins of the principles of how it worked way back. Councils wanted somewhere to go, somewhere to support them, to train them, to keep them what we've known as ahead of the curve. So they put their money in the middle of the table and set up a not-for-profit organisation, which has been replicated across the UK. So each county association is independent. We are affiliated, or we are linked to the National Association of Local Councils. And they do quite a lot of lobbying for us nationally, and it's an important network. So our operating model is that we are member driven, so they direct what we do. We have a very good reputation for having good sector knowledge. A good example of that is our advisory services, which is one of our most valued services. So we are at the end of a phone for our members, sometimes an hour before the meeting, sometimes immediately after a meeting, and clerks and councillors, chairs and clerks have the direct line to us. We don't ordinarily speak directly to councillors. The chair, sometimes the vice chair if they're authorised, and the clerk have the key to the door, and we reassure them, we help them, we direct them, we send them information, we set things up if we need to, and look at other ways that we can support, and it's hugely valued. We receive on average around 100 or so technical inquiries, quite detailed technical inquiries a month, but a lot more during the day, operational inquiries. the majority of which we deal with as a team. But we do have a suite of experts on standards and governance, on VAT, on finance, on legal. We sometimes use Now Legal, who do legal topic notes for the sector. We have someone on village halls, and we obviously have good working relationships with a monitoring officer and with other officers throughout the network. So if we can't answer it, then we know someone, hopefully, who will be able to. So that's a good overview of our knowledge. Our services are very focused to the town and parish council sector because that's what our members want us to do. So in addition to the advisory services, we offer training and development. Sometimes we try and do things for free. I do as much for free, so once they've paid their subs, the added value is as broad as we can make it. And certainly under my time, I have expanded that significantly because what was important to me is I don't want town and parish councils to be members of SALC because we always have been. So it's on the agenda item in October when they're looking at budgets. We've always had SALC. We can't do without them. Not sure what we use them for, but we'll pay it anyway. That's not really the type of service that I was interested in developing. We want to be a partner by their side and a trusted support organisation shaped by them. So in addition to additional training, we do forums which have expanded hugely during COVID, and we've maintained them. So we've had to really think about smart working to keep that going. So we have climate forums, we have networks for chairs and mayors, we have monthly networks for clerks, we have our quarterly area forums, which is based on district. We've got about 20% of our members attend them, and maybe a little less. And it's always been an issue getting councillors to come to our area forums. So we are reviewing them. They were being reviewed when I started 4 and a bit years ago, so this is not a new issue. And I have explored what the operating models are across the UK, and the board will be looking at that in the new year. For our area forums, we've got a number of things that we've tried out. We've done topic-based ones with the Police and Crime Commissioner. We have speakers such as Transport East that came to the East Suffolk ones more recently, and we have broadcast that out to members across the network. I'm hoping that we will do some more with other stakeholders. West Suffolk, we do joint liaison with them, with that local authority, and we regularly get, between 50 and 80 attendees to that session because it's a party worth going to. And that's really what we're trying to get lessons learned from that. In terms of development, we have invested, or the board have invested, in a new case management system, which will allow us to be much more with smarter working. So our members have a portal. It's a workroom. It will be rolled out to councillors either after elections or before. We're not too sure yet because it's a busy start to 2023 for us. That is tools of the trade. It gives them hands-on information around legal topic notes. It gives them the Model Council, which is a new online resource that we've developed that takes all the sector information that's fragmented and puts it into a dynamic online tool that they can use. However, with all of these great innovative things that we've introduced, so that we're developing what we do and how we do it, we remain available at the end of the phone. What our members don't want is a system where it's a reporting tool, so to speak. We do not want to become faceless. That is not the sector that we represent. We represent outside your front door, and we need to be at the side of a clerk or a chair, which, to be honest, is quite, they're on the coal face, and it's sometimes going to be quite a challenging, and for those single employees, quite a lonely place. So we are very focused on being available at all times. So that's that in terms of our operating model. We have a constitution, we have a business plan, which I'm going on to now, and we have 3 very plain objectives there, which you can see up on the screen. And within our annual review, our report, which we do in July at our AGM, We go over our financial summary, we review all of our activities, we present our structure and our governance, and we look forward, so we don't just look back at that meeting. So I would, if you want to know more about SALC in a nutshell, have a look at our annual report, because that's got, it's a really, really good document, and it shows you all that we do and a little bit more, because it looks ahead. And yeah, I think it's a really good way of understanding our roles and responsibility. So we've said very briefly about what we provide. Webinars and podcasts. Podcasts is fairly new. I'm just waiting for some new equipment to arrive in what is our now smaller offices. So we've looked at our running costs. We've looked at how we were operating during COVID. We've kept the best bits as part of our moving out of COVID plans, and we're saving our members money, which we're reinvesting, as you would expect. We also have e-bulletins that go to clerks. This is a really important point in terms of collaboration. If you take anything away, take this away, in that clerks have information falling from the ceiling at them. Quite often it's duplicated. It was a lesson learned from COVID. We were given tasks, for example, as part of a network to provide information or pass information on, but we were finding that district, county and other organisations were doing the same. We'd all been asked to do the same, and so the risk there is the clerk will see something and probably think, well, I've seen it here, here and here, and there might be a nugget of information in your comms that they missed because it was accompanied by something they'd seen before. So my aspiration is that we work collaboratively as a network, that we get information that's accurate and timely, but we don't send it 20 times, which when you're a clerk only working a few hours a week, it is a real challenge. A challenge for us too is the information being passed on, mainly because, you know, how can you, such as a small amount of hours, pass information on? And that's why our membership portal will be so important to councillors, because it means that they've got things at their fingertips and look back at newsletters, look at some of the headlines, look at InfoLink, which we have on there as part of our promotion of the cost of living support, for example. So e-bulletins on a Monday to clerks are technical. They're the things that they need to think about and they need to be aware of, and they're ahead of the curve. Tuesdays, I always get Tuesdays and Wednesdays mixed up, but one is training and development, so looking at what events we've got coming up, and Wednesdays are vacancies, because we do promote vacancies as well. The other additional services, which I forgot to mention, were that we provide payroll services to councils, which is very much valued. We've got, it grows every year. I think we're 140, 150 councils that we do it for at the moment, and we provide a much valued service. It gives them resilience and consistency, and it just takes a job away from the clerk, and we do it as cheaply as we possibly can. And we also do an internal audit service as well, which is, you know, during the normal season. And again, we have over 100 councils that use that service, and we have quite a strict operating procedure for that, and we use external, actually working clerks to run that service. And we feed that back in, so the results of the audit, we feed back into, well, where are the gaps, where are we seeing the trends, what can we do to improve that? Guidance and templates is on the portal. And finally, in terms of lobbying and representation, well, I've got a place on a number of groups within Suffolk and nationally. So I'm on the National Improvement and Development Board, and I'm also a SILCA, the Certificate in Local Council Award Scheme. Certificate in Local Council Administration, SILCA. I'm an accredited trainer for that, and that's developing clerks with a qualification, and that comes through the Improvement and Development Board. There's also a quality scheme called the Local Council Award Scheme as well. So I work nationally on that, an improvement, as well as improvement for county officers like myself. So we also need quite a lot of support because of the ever-changing coalface, actually, of the public sector, which is where we're all working. I also meet with MPs regularly. We have 3 that are members of our organisation as vice presidents, and we compare our notes every so often. What's in your inbox? What are councils saying to you? What are the challenges? What are now nationally lobbying about? At the moment, it is around remote meetings, which has been on the agenda for a long, long time. Also internet banking, or banking per se, for councils. It's really challenging when there's changes to signatories. There's no really good service out there. So there's just a couple of examples of lobbying that we're doing and representation. And at the networks that I'm at in Suffolk, I do rep, and I'm known as we need SALC in the room for town and parish councils. Massive challenge for me. I don't have enough hours in the day to go at what is an ever-increasing list of meetings, and I'm very open and honest about that. If I go to a meeting and it's an hour or 2 long and all we're being asked is to cascade information, the smarter way would have been just to ask us to cascade information. If you want us as a working group and you want to listen to councils about their challenges, different kettle of fish, we can enable that. But it is that I find that the most challenging, and I'm very open about that. So sector knowledge development. So I've talked about the Model Council, which is our new online resource that we're developing. We were hoping that would be a national resource. It has got national interest. But we are going it alone because we've had to wait quite a long time for anything to get moving. So the board said, just do it. So we're working very hard on that. Core training with councillors, clerks, RFOs, chairs, and the whole council cover core training for councillors, and it's never been more successful. So we're regularly 2, 3, 4 evenings a week sometimes running councillor training. Hundreds of sessions for councillors. The things that we've got coming up in the new year is a really good collaborative piece, again for you to take away, which is around briefings for clerks for elections. So we did that in the past, and I wasn't really very much involved in it because it was 4 years ago, so it kind of just happened. This year, we've been working directly, as we did before, but a bit more focused with election teams in your respective authorities. So it means that it's something worth the clerk going to. We'll record it, we'll put it within our model council. We've developed our model council articles on elections and co-option, and so we're piecing it all together. It means that the clerk can go to one briefing session. They've got a trainer from SALC going over the operational stuff, and they've got an election officer going over the authorities process. And I think that is a really good joining of our knowledge and information so that it's valuable. We also did the same for the Code of Conduct with monitoring officers. So authorities kindly paid for one of the authors of the LGA Councillor Code of Conduct to run 3 sessions, I think it was 3 sessions, which we recorded, one of which we've embedded into the Model Council, and we've actually bookmarked it because it was a long 2-hour session on the LGA Code of Conduct in an evening. So we've bookmarked it. It's on YouTube, but it's not listed, and it allows new councillors, which we'll be using in the new year, to actually fast forward to some examples. Myself and my advice manager are also going to do a drop-in session now. The LGA Code of Conduct is sort of settled, and we're going to do some fun sessions with clerks who are, like you have officers here, you know, in a meeting and an issue comes up and they've got to think on their feet. It is a new Code of Conduct. They've moved away from the Suffolk one. How can we help the clerks work their way through it with some practical examples? That's just something we'll do as part of the network. Other examples of training are project management training, which I have done and I'm going to redo in the new year for clerks that are looking to expand, because project management can go from small events to large events, and it's a skill that they should have in their training and development programme if they're interested. We've also done comms and marketing, how to engage youth, some things around speeding, but they've been free events with the Police and Crime Commissioner. Antisocial behaviour we've done with them. So there's lots that we're doing, and I think probably the fastest growing one is our climate forum. So that is sector driven. So councillors and clerks said, could we have a climate forum? Could we all sit in a room and talk about our plans, what you're doing, learn from each other, the core of what SALC does, could now SALC enable that, and we have. And actually, we are now working with a collaborative work stream for Greenest County, and we're seen as a very, very proactive partner. And we're at a junction, parishes are at a junction with climate matters. What more can they do? And interested in what district councils are doing. So back at you in that, do they understand your plans? Would district come and talk to our group? Would they help us? So we join it up. Otherwise, they'll read about it on social media, as will I, or within the paper, see what you're doing and think, well, actually, that's a shame because we were having that discussion only 2 weeks ago. So there's a kind of another example of us developing the sector knowledge. You can find out more about SALC on our website. It's a new website. It was the last thing for us to do in terms of our developing new ways of working, as well as moving offices and our new systems. It is designed to showcase what we do and how we do it. You can sign up to our local councillor magazine through that, and you can view the current one. We wanted to do that, but we didn't really have systems to do it very well. We were just using Outlook. We don't have IT support, in terms of an in-house team. We have to figure it out for ourselves. So it took us a little while to do the design and get it right. But the website is a showcase about what SALC does, what councils do, what clerks do, what projects we're involved in. We're after a target audience of district councillors like yourself, because we'd like you to know more about what we do. We know that monitoring officers will advocate, and other officers will say, are you members of SALC? And so that councils are sort of engaged in the support that we do. But it showcases our involvement in the climate forum, so you can look at that. You can look at the recordings of those sessions and the resources we offer. You can look at the Queen's Green Canopy, which we were very much involved in for Suffolk, which was tree planting. You can find out about our payroll service, because it's all free on there to have a look at. It really shouts about what SALC does. We don't have a comms and marketing officer. We are at the coalface because we're supporting the coalface of the public sector, and that's where our time goes. If our members wanted to invest in a comms and marketing person, then maybe things would be a bit different. But our service is to our members. If you want to know more about our services, our website and our front window are, that's where we advertise, and hopefully we can do a little bit more on social media, and hopefully if you signed up to the local councillor, you would see some more around that. And finally, we must develop the sector, so we want to attract more diverse people and help councils recruit. So our website is designed to do that as well. It's on its journey, it's not perfect, but we hope we'll expand it. So we'd like podcasts from chairs, mayors, clerks. I'm hoping to work with the Suffolk branch of the Society of Local Council Clerks on developing pathways for clerks, developing pathways for councillors. We have got that on our website at the moment, but we want to expand it more. So I'm a new councillor, what do I need to know? I have a 4-year term. What training should I go on? How do I keep up to date? So that's a very, very quick run through. I don't know how long I've taken. I didn't have my stopwatch, but I hope that is useful.
Thank you very much indeed, Sally. It's been both informative. Having been both a parish councillor as well as a district councillor for quite a number of years now, it's always interesting to hear what is new within SALC, because it is, like most councils, constantly evolving, and councils have to, of all levels, have to keep up to date with things. Any questions for Sally? Mr. Davies.
Sally, I see that you have liaison meetings with West Suffolk District Council. Are there any formal links with Mid Suffolk? I ask in ignorance, obviously. And if not, would it be helpful to have some formal links?
it's emerging for Babergh Mid Suffolk. We've kind of reached out and we did have some officers come to our most recent area forums, which we recorded that segment to actually introduce the new locality framework, the locality team that you've got. And that would allow that parishes to understand that little bit more and the help and what's been developed. So that was really encouraging. I think because each district operates slightly differently, we would like to have a model that would work. I can explain to you that in West Suffolk, we have joint parish liaisons, so the leader of the council and I open them, and we agree some topics. What's slightly missing from that we've learnt is that whilst we get the numbers there and it's a party worth going to, which is great, big tick, the council lose their voice a little bit. They're talked at rather than with, and working with them. And that's not necessarily what our members want. You know, this is a network for them to say, this is our concern at the moment, or this is a great piece of work that we've done. We want to tell you about it. And then for the sector to say, oh, I'm going to have a look at that, we're going to take that and we're going to replicate it instead of reinventing the wheel. So I think it needs to be a hybrid of that. We'll look at that with West Suffolk. I've started to talk to them about that. It could be we have one joint liaison per annum and we have our own SALC forum, but the whole thing is in the melting pot for the board to look at strategically. In East Suffolk, they don't have liaison meetings. They fund a part of a post in SALC. They have their community partnership framework, model, and we, as part of the pilot, right from the day one when I arrived at SALC, East Suffolk wanted to speak to me, and I was involved in that, and they told me their plans, which was very encouraging and innovative, and we also wanted to bring the tiers together to avoid that duplication, to enable councils. So they fund a 4-hour-a-week post, and that is that bridge between, a bit like the localities bit, but we work with the community teams as well. So we'll see what comes out with Babergh and Mid Suffolk. It will be the shape that you want it to be, if you're interested.
Thank you. If I could take this opportunity to thank Sally and SALC for everything they do. I was chairman of Somersham Parish Council, and twice SALC came in and helped completely, essentially, with issues in there. One was a sort of management issue, but the second one was sadly the clerk died suddenly, and that clerk was the clerk of 7 or 8 parish councils, and SALC immediately stepped in, and they had a person that we could speak to at any time to discuss things, and they were completely essential in getting through that, and very sensitive as well with the situation, because it was a very sad experience. But the question that I'd like to ask is, with the training courses you run for councillors and clerks, COVID aside, how do you see how are they sort of trending with take up? Do they, for instance, do you get more people on there or less as time goes on? And the other thing I wanted to talk about is I don't know if any part of those, I have been on the councillor training course, but a very long time ago. But I don't know if we discuss on those the boundaries of what a clerk is expected to do and what's beyond their their job description, because I do sometimes find that parish councils ask a huge amount of their clerk, and sometimes they're doing things that aren't necessarily fair to expect a clerk to do. So yeah, those two questions, and a lot of my other questions have been explained in the presentation, which I think is a good advert for SALC, that you've covered every single base on this report so well. So thank you.
Yeah, Thank you for that. We can't run enough training sessions. So it may well be that the training you came to was face-to-face and it was a block of session or 2 sessions. We broke them up because of COVID and going online, and we've retained that. So they are, they're modules, and they're based on one's roles and responsibilities, and that's in answer to your second question. We are very clear about the roles and responsibilities of councillors, and yes, there is a big ask of clerks, I agree, and we do very much impress on what the councillors as a corporate body, as well as them individually, around standards and code of conduct that they are responsible for and have duties to perform. And hopefully that is enough. We get very good feedback on that. But I think there's another arch of that, which is employment matters and HR matters, which we do have very much is reactive. And we do look at, you say about management, we do see that there are challenges when it comes to management. So have you got your policies and procedures? Do you understand your responsibility as an employer? And do you manage your clerk and support them, be it in their training, in their development, in their role, which is quite often ever expanding. So there should be a review of their job description, there should be regular one-to-ones, etc. And that's something that we're really starting to push on. There will be some new online resources that will really focus councils on that they can just use instead of them having to develop them individually. But we can't put on enough training without a shadow of a doubt. And I think the challenge for us is to get some more trainers and make them available. I can't remember the second half of the question now. I do apologise.
I think you've covered everything in my question. It was about the take-up, which you've explained, and the clerk's position, how that's outlined, and I think I've got everything that I asked for. Thank you very much.
Okay, and I would just add, under levelling up or the county deal, I meet regularly with the chief exec at the county here. They do give us some funding, which helps us operate, which is massively appreciated because we are very small. We can only there's so much we could do, but I have to keep on point. I can't mission creep in terms of what our objectives are, but we are very limited in what we can do. But in terms of the county deal, we are seen as a stakeholder in engagement for that. And my lobbying representative role is that we need to be very clear about what councils can do, and maybe I look under the bonnet every day and I can see that there are challenges for them. Their day job, and again you can find this on our website, their calendar of business as usual is there for all to see. Before the planning applications come in, before they're considering neighbourhood development plans, which are massive pieces of work, before there's any national infrastructure projects, which is another big issue that I'm involved in to help that sector handle that, because we've got a lot, probably the most in the country in the east, and again I'm talking to MPs and ministers about that, and also the county where we can expand that. So these are things that you've got a clerk that is actually fielding, and it's very, very challenging, and we need to think about the skills, and we need to think where that line is blurred. So it should be more collaboratively approached. And the NSIPs one is a really interesting one because parishes will do their response and you're all in the same boat actually when it comes to NSIPs, but the parishes don't actually have officers like you do. They don't have lawyers to hand, they don't have professional officers to hand, so how can we enable them to work smarter and represent the community? It's a massive challenge, that, and that's a good example of the future things that we need to think about.
Councillor Dawson?
Yes, what I was wondering is, you were talking, it says about protecting the privileges of members and high quality specialist support. How does that work, say, with some of these councils where they've got a lot of issues with the code of conduct? Do you get involved with that, or do you refer that to the Councillors Association, who sort of has the legal expertise? Is that something that you do, or is not really?
When it comes to that, we refer to the monitoring officers when there's any code of conduct issues. That's, you know, we meet regularly with them. If there are any challenges, then, you know, we share some of that knowledge and make sure that we're on the same point on that. What we can do is we do have, so Harry Ainco Associates, who wrote the Councillor Code of Conduct, we have a service level agreement with them. So if there is a scenario or a particular thing that a council or a clerk is not clear on and they've been told to go away and check, we can always get that expertise in. We can also ask an out legal, or we can perhaps speak to the monitoring officer. But we have got very clear lines that if it is a code of conduct matter, then they must speak to the monitoring officer about it.
A lot of these issues with the you know, I'm just seeing some things, you know, I'm Hadley North, and a lot of these issues seem to drag on. Do you have quite a lot of protocols in place, and particularly for disputes between members?
The protocols we have is that we don't necessarily get involved with the, you know, our hotline, and I said that earlier, it's the clerk and the chair that have access to our services. Otherwise, there is a risk that we're getting all the different stories, and that's no good to anybody. If there are councils who are, you know, having some difficulties, we have on occasion gone in and looked at how we can help them in partnership with the monitoring officer. So we've looked at, well, these are the challenges, we've gone in and done training, whole council training.
So if you're protecting the members here with heart support, does that apply just for the business only, really?
We support the council.
Yeah.
So our service is not to any one individual, including the clerk. So if anything happens in terms of, you know, employment matters with the clerk, our support is to the corporate body, always to the corporate body. They are the member.
So should this, just as a matter of point 4.3, should we perhaps amend that? Because it just seems to me quite confusing. It says here it protects the privileges of the members, and I wonder whether that's slightly misleading, because this is more about the business, not actually about the members, is it, really? That's what I was getting at, really.
I'm more than happy, you know, for that to be clarified if that's unclear. I mean, some of the other national work that's going on is civility and respect, which is a national project which my colleagues, other county officer colleagues, have been involved in, and will be coming out. That's our new resources in terms of employment matters and being a good employer. Because there's a number of things in there about how we treat each other, and there is a pledge that councils can sign up to. For example, sadly only 4 in Suffolk have done that so far, but hopefully, you know, some podcasts and some more information that we will be issuing out that will help.
You would take on sort of racial issues and perhaps hate campaigns then? No, you don't.
No.
Yes, so
absolutely not. No.
I just wonder whether that point should perhaps point 2 on 4.3. The second bullet point might need slightly amending.
I think there's a bit of wordplay going on there as much as anything else. Interests, rights, functions and privileges, that's not EU type privileges. This is sort of
that's correct, but it's
the privilege of being able to do the job as a parish councillor as much as anything else. I think if we're talking about something to do with hate campaigns or race or anything like that,
so it's not it's protecting the business side of all this, but not actually members effectively, which is, you know, fair enough. I mean, that's not their line of business, but that's not quite what it says there, is it really?
Councillor Grandin, you wanted to say?
Thank you, Chair. Only on that point, if SALC was formed in 1950 to do those functions, depends whether we put those words together or SALC put those words together. You know, if that's what they were formed in 1950 to do, then we can't really personally here in this council change what they're intended to do. We can maybe just suggest that they look at that line themselves, but it's not really for us to change what their remit is.
Or is that what the officers are?
It depends who wrote these bullet points, whether that was us interpreting as a council, or whether that's SALC's own words and their own remit.
In terms of who wrote the report, that report came from Di Robinson and Communities, so Sally, no one from SALC wrote the report.
I think what we'll do is we'll take away from that and make sure that within our literature, and I'm pretty sure it is fairly clear, that we support the corporate body. If there, I will ask the team, do they think that there is, does this maybe detract from that, and have we got it clearer elsewhere? And I'll certainly take that away. But these are objectives that, that have been embedded. And I honestly, I can't, off the top of my head, I'd have to look at the two to make sure that they do match. Because this report was by Di Robinson, and I will double check that. But I'll take that away for sure, but it is something that's within our constitution and for SALC.
Sorry, thank you. It's helpful because, if we need to refer things on, maybe we shouldn't be referring them on to you, because that's, probably not really your area of expertise.
I think it's probably appropriate that the form of wording is looked at and perhaps modified slightly to make it clearer and more functional. Any other questions? Councillor McLaren, did you wish to say something?
Thank you, Chair. Would you like me to address the questions to you or to Sally? To Sally. Sally, thank you for that presentation. You've worked really hard over the last years, I think, to improve the communication between SALC and its members and ward members. But I've got two questions that really are a common problem, I think, with parish councils, especially those that are not very adequately set up. So, in terms of training, we know how important that is for councillors and the clerk. What if the parish doesn't have the money, sufficient funds to actually fund the training? And perhaps linked to that, with your online training, has that altered the cost of the training by it going online?
Okay, so the cost of the training online hasn't changed. In fact, it's more flexible. So previously you had to sign up to X number of sessions when we did it face to face. On reflection now, it was probably a bit restrictive in that the majority were during the day. We did do some weekends one and the odd evening one, you had to sign up as £100 and something for those sessions. We broke it down into modules that allows, and councillors do this. They're mostly in the evening because our trainers can only do it then. So that, I think, that has provided quite a lot of flexibility. If you can't come, we can record it and they can watch it afterwards. And they could just use it, and we always promote it like this. If you do the whole lot and actually you need to skill up on roles and responsibilities or finance module, then you could just drill into that for £26. I mean, that's what we're talking about, £26 for a session per module. And sometimes we do whole council training if it's the whole thing. If you haven't got sufficient funds, and the example I've got of that, I don't know whether it's in this district, it might have been in Babergh Mid Suffolk, was a new clerk, been a clerk before, came back on board, very small council, needed to get up to speed, came to the area forums, lots of challenges, really needed to pick things up. And we obviously said, well, you need to go on training. And immediately it was, we haven't got the money for that. So the council weren't necessarily looking at, in their calendar, what are we going to achieve this year? Their to-do list. Maybe their business plan, if they want to do it fancy, but basic to-do list when they're setting the budget. What do we want to do? Review, have we got the capacity? Have we got the skills gap? Do we need to do some? So these are the logical things that we encourage councils to look at. So they obviously weren't doing any of the above. So we would work directly with the clerk as much as we can. So looking at now, we can use the model council. Before that, it was read this, look at that, read that legal topic note. I mean, you know, they're gonna keel over, aren't they, when you send all that stuff? So the model council is much more interactive. So that's kind of what we did. The model council is another example of added value. So yes, we've got smaller offices, but yes, we've invested capital with no extra help from anyone. You know, just our county grant and the income that we make, and we are not for profit, so we turn nothing at the end of the, you know, true to form. That allows us to do things, and I really have done things differently. I really have shaken things up, and I think it's been valued. So there isn't extra cost to that. So I think looking at the model council and looking at it in a very simple form that myself and my advice manager have written, and their questions, and the next thing we're going to do, because we've got our systems now, is we're going to add frequently asked questions so that if someone else has asked it, you can have the benefit of that. So that's where we would direct a clerk. We'd also say come to our clerk networking. So that's included in your membership. And they might network with a neighbouring clerk then, meet up for coffee, help them with that. So that's as much as we can do. But that clerk had nothing, had no money for training and development. So that's the key thing to help her, help the council move to that. And we could even go to their meeting and explain to them, you know, look at developing. But if not, then yes, you know, we're there. And that, you know, we've got 375 members. We've got the, you know, a number of large councils. We've got a glut of the medium ones and then smaller ones. And we have to manage, and our board is very passionate about this. Don't go chasing the fancy stuff for all these up here. You've got to think about these that are, give me a break. I can't look at that. I've got this to do and I've only got this amount of hours. So how do we help them? So we're very tuned into that.
Chair, can I just ask a second question? Thank you. If a parish council is struggling, and some of them are, to survive, is it better for them to become a parish meeting only? Is that in their best interest rather than try and, you know, comply with the regulation and all the requirements of a parish council?
I don't think I can answer that. All I can say, I think we did have that question, and I think our advice manager said to the parish that, you know, there's just been a community governance review. That's the opportunity. So the network around that, the information around that. Now, did that fall through the crack? Was the comms around that? And in fact, the officer at Babergh Mid Suffolk I engaged with and said we need to explain this, because a member of our board said to Babergh Mid Suffolk, councillors don't know what this is all about. Are you working with SALC on it? And we did work on it and tried to explain it a little bit more. That's the opportunity for parishes to think, are we the right model? Do we need to look at whatever? But I can't answer the question whether should they be that if they're not that. I can't answer that. I think that would be from probably monitoring officers, not for me.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. It's been a very good presentation, thank you. You've spoken a lot about how you help parish and town councils. A lot of the information that you disseminate is information from the larger councils, the district and county council and so on. Do you get, is there anything, if you could make, with waive a magic wand, that you need from us as district councils that would make your life better, or that you'd like to see work better? Are you getting enough from us to help the town and parish councils, or is it all wonderful?
I aspire to have the tiers of local government work together. So if there is a key message or we're doing something on topic, that we do it, you know, as one single thing. So we think about, and it could be as simple as the communities teams or your localities team doing this. Could you help us get that message out to councils about it? And we would do that. We do that a lot. Yeah, it's very difficult, isn't it, to work in partnership and collaboratively. And it's very challenging when you're doing something and you see something pop up somewhere else and think, what a shame, that could have been really good if we'd have done it together. I think balance with that is our challenge that we represent town and parishes. So we must work where we work smarter together. That's what I would ask for, to work smarter and have that thought process. But our challenge is I worry that, you know, we don't have the resources to do as much as that. We can't be at every table because it's me at every table, and that's not feasible. So we're not really kitted out to do it. The best we can do is to cascade the information on your behalf. So I think what is potentially beginning to grow is this model as us working in partnership. So we have that arena for councillors to network together in their sector, but also for there to be a party worth going to, maybe as an information session, and us understand mutually what we're doing. But that is back to communication, and it's really, really tough. So I haven't got I'm afraid I haven't got an ideal answer for that at all. But don't make the mistake that if we work collaboratively about talking to councillors, them retaining their role, and also to be respectful that their time is voluntary. And if anything does come down, and I do make these representations, voluntary time is just as precious as paid time. I think it needs to be clear about what remits are and what expectations are. It applies equally to the agencies in the county as well as it does the districts. So if I see something that someone's doing over there, for example, Community Action Suffolk are doing a survey on what are the barriers for climate change in your as a voluntary sector, and our forum would like that for our sector. So I'm going to just use that and push it out. I'm not going to do my own survey. Why would I? As long as we can segment the information and say for the drill down for the parish. And I wish I was resourced so I could do some of that stuff and do that analysis, but we're not. So I can't.
Any other questions? Fine, thank you very much indeed for your input. This report is for noting rather than anything, unless you have any recommendations that you would like to be added to the report to help I won't say improve the work of SALC, because I think that'll be a bit presumptuous of us, but to make the work of SALC easier when dealing with Babergh and Mid Suffolk. No? Right, that report is just for noting. Thank you. Thanks very much indeed, Sally. Senior apologies for Councillor Lindsay. This is where we start jumping about a bit, because we will now move on to item 13, which is the forthcoming decisions list. Do any members have any comments on the forthcoming decisions list? which would have been circulated by email on Friday, because of course it's updated every week. That again is for noting, so if nobody's got any comments on that, we will move on, and having noted that. All happy? Moving on then to Overview and Scrutiny Committee Action Tracker. This is a wonderful sort of coloured chart. Any comments on that? I think it's good to see that the red boxes have reduced in number considerably. Sorry, the committee is still awake, are we? No comments at all on that one either. No? That again is for noting, so we'll move on from the action tracker to, this is for Babergh district members only. Do Babergh members have any comment on the Overview and Scrutiny work plan? Other than the fact that it's not working you hard enough, of course. Babergh members, no comments on the work plan? No? Councillor Grandin.
Thank you, Chair. Just having a quick look at the February meeting and the education, skills and employment bit. Obviously, that doesn't come under the Babergh remit. So I just wondered what the thinking is about us examining that, as we can only influence, we can't really do much more, make a recommendation, but would it not be better use of our time to do something that we can actually influence more strongly or actually change?
I think you've got a valid point there, but at the same time, we do have quite an extensive ability to influence as far as education and so forth is concerned, via our planning side and the economic development side as well. So I think it's important that we do have a look at it to see if there's any more we can add to it to make it more valid. Appreciate that it's the County Council's responsibility to control that aspect. But that doesn't mean to say that we shouldn't have a look at it and be prepared, if necessary, perhaps to call the County Council in to discuss it with us.
Do you feel strongly about it? Sorry.
Well, no more strongly than anybody else. I'm just putting forward some suggestions as to the relevance, etc. of it.
I just wasn't sure if it was a good use of our time, when there might be a more specific district-related topic that we could examine. Happy to do
Is that valid?
or just a suggestion.
Valid point. We'll get a chance in January to revise it again if necessary. Councillor Barrett.
Thank you. On that point, I think there is an important point here, because if we focus on an area where we have less influence and we have less opportunity, very nice to have a debate about this and very interesting, but there's a cost. There can be a cost to that, and that cost is less time to focus on another area that is appearing on the same day, as time is limited. So I do wonder, because I have proposed one of those items in February, and I want to have sufficient time to examine that in depth, and I think there is a risk that we won't do so if we allow the agenda to become quite heavy with areas that are great to discuss, really interesting topics, but what can we really add to this? So, yeah, I agree.
Please may we take a vote on it?
What? Do we need to?
Well, as in,
Two of us.
well,
Three of us.
four of us, but
Four of us.
yeah, yeah. I mean, can we make a decision whether we should go ahead with that as a topic or not, please?
Just to clarify, that was mostly around skills and employment. Obviously, it's Fiona de Helm who is bringing that report, and it's the work that we're doing with things like careeriosity, which I can't hardly say, and what we're doing to promote employment in you know, our region. So there is some influence that you can have. So it's not just about the education, but how we're informing that education around the things that we're doing to promote apprenticeships and other things.
Thank you. Sorry. So that's a Babergh report that we're doing as a district, or a district level report.
It will be a district report just for Babergh if it's not on the Mid-Suffolk Work Programme. It is it? Oh, it's on the Mid-Suffolk Work Programme, so it's across both districts what we're doing around those items.
May I ask whether it might be a good idea to perhaps to hone the topic in then, to make it more on the subject that Jan's talking about, rather than the very broad topic that's on the sheet, please, if everyone thinks that's a good idea. It seems better to narrow it down to something that we can specifically influence.
Yeah, you can reword your work programme, and it is for committees, you know, your choice whether you take that forward or just postpone it perhaps even into the new municipal year. If you want to concentrate on other matters, it is for you to decide, but you can reword that, and it's for you to scope and let officers know really what you want to have a look at. But yeah, it's all within your powers.
I think without going into sort of personal details or anything else, I think that at the moment youngsters looking for employment or fast coming up for the needs of employment, whether it be qualifications or whatever, there is a considerable need out there at the moment for guidance from somebody to help them achieve a meaningful progress through life, because they've had a disrupted time over the last 2 or 3 years with COVID, etc. And anybody doing GCSEs and A-levels at the moment, for instance, are under considerable pressure. Councillor Brandon.
So can we please reword our topic?
And what sort of wording would you like to see?
Well, that's more in line with the work that the district's doing, that Jan has mentioned, please.
Okay, yeah. Yeah.
We'll put some words together.
If everyone's in agreement.
Yeah. Labour councillors? All happy with that? Councillor Dawson?
Yes.
So that is noted, except for that change in wording on that particular item. Thank you for bringing it up, Councillor Grandon. Brings us on to Mid-Suffolk's work plan. Any comment from Mid-Suffolk's councillors? Perhaps on the issue of skills attainment.
Dave bearing in mind we've got the general fund and HRA fund, which is often quite a major topic, does that need to be held in January, or could that be put back?
Yeah.
Chair, there's no actual limits on, as long as we as long as we call a meeting, it doesn't have to, have to say the time scale particularly. However, we do need to put a line under that pretty much as quickly as we can, really. So we are aware of, the impact on the time of what you've got, and we know it's a really packed schedule. So, but we have spoken to everybody, and they can make, all the witnesses and the lead calling can make that date. So that hence why we've gone forward. But we could postpone it if you so wish, but I would advise against it because we really do need to hear that. That's gone on for a couple of months now. So
We'll take your advice on that.
yeah.
Councillor.
Yeah, thank you. It's something that Keith and I have talked about as well. The workload on there, but yeah, it is something that we do have to address, and we can't really do it any later because it's just not fair on the people involved in it, and they want to see that scrutinised as soon as possible. And it is, like you say, it's 2 months down the line, and we're talking in the future as well. So, but yeah, completely understand what you're saying, Councillor. But it was exactly how we discussed it, and we said yes, it's got to be in there.
So, Mid-Suffolk members, are you happy with your work plan for noting? Yes. Brings us back a bit now to item 11 on the agenda, and the exclusion of the public term, which includes the press, to consider whether, pursuant to Part 1 of Schedule 12A of the Local Government Act 1972, the public should be excluded from the meeting for the business specified below, on the grounds that if the public were present during the item, it is likely that there would be the disclosure to them of exempt information as indicated against the item. The author of the report proposed to be considered in Part 2 of the agenda is satisfied that when the public interest is maintaining the exemption outweighs the public interest in disclosing the information. That's a mouthful. Can I have a proposal, please? Councillor Carston?
Thank you, Chairman. I think it is really important that the public are excluded from this, because information in this section of the meeting could give potential hackers or criminals a insight into how our cyber security works, which would be very useful to them. And obviously we don't really want that in the public domain. So yeah, I'm happy to propose that this is done behind closed doors.
Councillor Moore? I now ask the lead officer to conduct the electronic vote.
Thank you, Chair. Members, that vote is now in progress. Thank you, Chair. That is 8 votes for, so that is unanimous.